Hey, what's up everyone? This is Brandon Bias from chichichecker.com and welcome to a Photoshop intermediate tutorial. Recently, we received a message on YouTube from a user named Angels on Our Shoulders, and he was basically just wondering how to make a certain text effect, and he gave us a link to a picture that looked like this. And after a little bit of tinkering around in Photoshop, this is the recreation we were able to come up with. So I'm just gonna give you a better look at this real fast. So as you can see, we just have a nice gradient going on, a stroke effect, and it looks a little bit 3D-ish, lines on the text, and you know, all that good jazz. So that's what we're gonna be working on today. Let's go ahead and get right into this. Let's go ahead and start up a new document. And I'm gonna go to a 1280 by 720 document with a transparent background. And if you have different dimensions for your desktop background, go ahead and change them accordingly. So we're gonna start off by filling this up with black by hitting Shift Backspace or Option Delete, and we're gonna use black and hit OK. So we'll just name this layer black by double clicking on the name right here. And all we're going to do for now is just set up the background, which is, if you look back, is just this spotlight with some lines going across it. And it's not all that hard, but make sure you pay close attention here. So all we're going to do is we're going to make two new layers. One of them is going to be called Spotlight, and the other is going to be Lines. And we're going to go to our Spotlight layer. And we're going to grab our brush tool, where you can hit the letter B, and make the brush size around 800 pixels with a 0% hardness. And make sure your foreground color in the bottom left hand corner is set to white. And we're just going to give it a nice little right in the middle there. And we're going to go ahead and change the opacity of the spotlight layer down to about 15% or so. And I know it's not going to show up very well on YouTube because it automatically darkens the video, but as you're following along, you'll see that the little splotch in the middle is actually there. Okay, so onto the lines. We're going to go ahead and select our lines layer right here. And if you go over here below the path selection tool right here, if you click and hold, by default you're probably going to see a rectangle right here. But if you click and hold, you can find the line tool down here on the list, and that's what we're going to be working with. So with white still as your foreground color down here, click and drag while holding Shift from one side of your canvas to the other, and then let go, and that'll make a nice line. And before you actually make that line, I suppose it would be a good idea to make sure it's set to 2 pixels. I kind of forgot to mention that. So this right here is a 2 pixel line. Make sure you got that down. And all we're going to do is we're going to go to the move tool up here, or you can hit the letter V. And we're going to use the transform tool by hitting Control or Command T. And if you go up here to where this little triangle right here is, if you see, I can actually turn it depending on the degrees in here. And we're just going to change that to about 35 degrees or so, and we're going to check mark it, so that should slant our line nicely right there. And as soon as your line is turned, go ahead and go back to the lines layer, and you see it's got this box on there, and that means this is a shape layer or something along those lines. And we just want this to be pure pixels, so we're going to right click the lines layer, and we're going to go down to rasterize layer. And now it should be a nice flat layer right there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click and drag our line while holding Shift so it stays nice and even right here. We're going to drag it so that it's kind of meeting up with the upper left hand corner. And if you go over to the lines layer and you hold your mouse over the box right here, and if you hold Control, you can see that the hand changes to a little hand with a box over it. And if you click, that means it will load the line as a selection. And so what we're going to do with this is we're going to do Control Alt T, and then that should bring up the transform tool, but it's also going to duplicate this line when we move it. So basically just go up here to where you have the x-axis right here, and then add 20 pixels to whatever number is there. So instead of 545, we're gonna make it 565, and that should be good right there. And as you can see, it duplicated our line and moved it over about 20 pixels or so. And we want to duplicate that movement we just did. So we're going to hit Control-Alt-Shift-T, and you'll see that it repeats that. So basically just hit Control-Alt-Shift-T about 1,000 times, and it should keep repeating that until it's duplicated across the right side of the canvas. Almost there. Okay, we're good. So as soon as you've got this look going on, go ahead and go to Filter, no, not Filter, Select, Deselect, or Control D, or Command D if you're on a Mac. And we want these lines to be on the left side as well. So we're going to actually duplicate the lines layer by hitting Control or Command J. And then we're going to hit Control T to transform the lines copy that we just made. And pretty much just put a negative sign in front of the width and the height, so you have negative 100% on both of these. And that should just flip it around, and we'll check mark it. And then with your move tool, go ahead and move it over while holding shift until it looks like it's about right. And then if you zoom in, let's see, where was it at? Let's turn this off real fast to find the edge and zoom in right here. I'm using my scroll wheel to zoom in and out in case you didn't notice. I'll turn this back on. Use the left and right arrows to move it accordingly. I think that looks about right there. So I'm going to hit Control 1 to zoom up to 100%. Actually, let's make that Control 0 to fit it up to the canvas. And that's kind of tripping my eyes out right now, but we'll fix that here pretty soon. So we're going to go ahead and merge these layers together by having the lines copy selected and hitting Control or Command E, and that way this should all be one layer right here. And all we're going to do with this lines layer is go to the effects and give it a color overlay, and the default is red, so we'll just click that and we're just going to change it down to black. We'll hit OK and hit OK again. And now we've got our spotlight in the middle with the lines striking right through it. Okay, so that was just taking care of the background. If it didn't really make all that much sense to you, don't worry, you don't have to do it in order to make the effect of for the text.